Hey there, Jonathan here, coming at you with a quick review. This time we're looking at issue 2 of Dawn of the Black Axe, artwork Gabriel Rodriguez, words and colors David Peterson. So we catch up with Broderick continuing his quest to rid the land of the 5 vile snake beasts. And so in his quest, we see at the beginning, actually, before we get to him, it gives kind of an overview of what's been happening since he's been on his quest to rid the land of these giant snakes that have been plaguing the Mouse villages and settlements. And then we get some catching up with him. He starts to question a little bit about his purpose and his quest, whether or not it's actually doing the good that he hoped it would. And his elk friend has disappeared as well, so that brings his emotions down in addition to that. And so we continue on. We see various, for a couple pages at a time, checking in on his progress over the years as he's traveling about the countryside. He eventually comes into Sal Canut's den in a very, if you're triggered by snakes, this is not the book for you. Let's just say that. He is able to dispatch Sal Canut, and there's some really great panel or page really that has silhouettes of him doing battle with the snakes. At one point, Broderick is ready to just end it all, just to die. His elk friend has disappeared, and maybe he's feeling like it's not worth it anymore. He just wants to end it all, so what he's going to allow Sal Canut to eat him. But in the last moment, he decides to continue his quest. And then lo and behold, his elk friend comes back, tells him that the one that created the Black Axe actually chose to live himself and made a new family, and communicates to Broderick that really he's on a quest to basically sacrifice his life to allow for others to have lives, which certainly is a noble cause. So next up is Dodfair the Poisonous, which I don't think is one of the big snakes. I think it's just another, I'm not clear on that one. I don't see his name listed in the map at the back. But anyway, so he goes and takes care of the snake, but is injured in the process, poisoned. And so it ends up with Broderick falling down, passing out. And we get some behind the scenes, which is always nice. And we get some of David's script along with Gabriel's pencils and inks, and then David's colors. And some interesting details there about that process is kind of brought out. That kind of the communication between the writer and the artist and everything, which I always find fascinating. Yeah, and so this story will end with book 3 in June. And so, just a great continuation of the beginning of the story. I think it definitely doesn't, there isn't really much negative I could say, if any, about this book. I think it just continues on in a nice pace from the previous story here. And I think we just have the long spear snake, I think, is the last one to go after. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But in any case, just along for the ride and see where this leads. This tale of the first of wielders of the Black Axe, which of course has such a pivotal role in later Mouse Guard stories. So so that was just a brief review there of the second book. Got a nice virgin cover by Kevin Eastman, so that's really cool. next time he's around in town, which he has come to Durham before, so I may be able to get his signature. And then Heroes Con, I'll get David Peterson. So if I get Peterson and Eastman to sign this cover, that'll be a nice little collectible for my personal collection. Yeah, so speaking of the original story, when I alluded to the Black Axe and how it was important to the story at the beginning that we all were introduced to, the 20th anniversary facsimile of Mouse Guard Belly of the Beast, which was David Peterson's first real published piece of work, which originally actually was black and white. And so this is a reprint of that first issue. I think, when I first picked up Mouse Guard, I want to say it was this book, but it was in color, and I think it might even be like a second printing. So I jumped on, I think in 2006 with Mouse Guard. I think it had just started, but still didn't get into the very beginnings. But in any case, it's kind of cool to see this story, this first issue, in a more pure form, you could say. It's kind of more original form. And where some art with comics can suffer when you don't add the color, not so with this book. Definitely the black and whites, and in some ways I actually kind of prefer the black and white. It just kind of, for me, harkens back to some kind of old style illustrative stories, which obviously he himself says, as David Peterson says, is inspiration for some of his work. So yeah, so it's a great pickup if you have not. Maybe you've just started reading Dawn of the Black Axe and haven't picked up the other books. This is a nice pickup. I think it's be a nice, collectible in that sense. So that is just a quick look at Mouse Guard Dawn of the Black Axe issue 2. And we also mentioned the 20th anniversary Mouse Guard first issue black and white facsimile. Some nice Mouse Guard items to pick up this month. Definitely check it out. Hopefully there's still some available in your local shop. That being said, I've been Jonathan, and you've been listening to Comic Talk Cafe.